So, okay, this is a very special podcast because you live in Canada.
I do.
And yet you're here in my living room.
I am.
/ kitchen.
In my 30s.
Welcome to the In My 30s podcast with Dr. Jada Watson.
Sorry.
I said doctor because I was going to say Jada, and then I was like, wait.
You were going to say Data Jada, weren't you?
No, I was like, wait, don't forget her title.
Sorry. Did I just ruin the intro?
No, you made it. You made it happen.
Okay.
So I texted you, or I DM'd you yesterday because I saw you were here.
Yeah.
And I didn't know you were here.
Sorry.
No, don't feel bad.
I'm a bad traveler sometimes.
No, sometimes when I see that people are in town, I'm like, I don't want to do that to them. Like, and I feel that way when I'm in town. Sometimes I don't want people to hit me up. So sometimes I don't even post that I'm here, which probably crossed your mind.
No, not at all, actually. This particular conference was busy in the lead up to it and then the running of it. And so I didn't really make any plans with anybody because I didn't want to flake on anybody. Yeah.
So what we're saying is don't read into anyone's behavior when they're visiting.
Something like that.
Yeah. No, I'm so glad you're here though. So you leave tomorrow. So you were here. You were here for a conference. What was the conference? We're going to pretend that you and I don't even know each other. Actually, I'm just going to interview you like I know nothing.
No, we do.
Well, I mean, we do, but like I actually just was finding out. So what was the conference? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the International Country Music Conference.
Okay.
I'm a co-organizer of it with 4 other individuals. And so it's a really interesting conference that happens every year in May around this time. And it assembles scholars, journalists, music enthusiasts who really just love country music. And so it's a 3-day thing. And I'm responsible for organizing the keynote presentation, the Charles K. Wolfe Memorial Panel, which usually talks about some historic moment within the industry or scholarship, and a singer-songwriter panel every Friday night. Yeah.
Because I mean, country music has a lot of award shows, a lot of conferences, but I hadn't heard of this one. And which is not surprising because I sort of am like fringe sometimes to certain things.
I feel like a lot of people don't know unless they're sort of actively engaged in research. Yeah. I remember I first learned about it in I think 2009.
Okay.
Or maybe 2008, a colleague of mine, my dear friend Travis Steimeling, had been a long time attendee at this conference, and they thought that this would be a great place for me to come.
Oh, yeah.
So when I was interning at the Country Music Hall of Fame in the summer of 2009, I attended. I didn't participate as a presenter, but I attended and I listened to it for the duration of the conference. And it was really wild because, I didn't really imagine a world in which I was not just getting to speak with scholars who I'd long admired, but also there were some journalists in the room who I admired, and archivists and colleagues now colleagues from the Country Music Hall of Fame and Museum. So it was really kind of overwhelming for me as a student to be in that setting. And then I presented for my first time in 2011. And so I've been doing this like co-organizer role since 2023. I helped. And then in 2024, I officially stepped in as a co-organizer.
For people that don't know your background, because this is a very specific field of study, I feel like. I just want to read your professional titles and achievements. And now I'm going to say Dr. Jada every time. Can I call you Jada?
You can just call me Jada. Of course you can.
So Jada has her PhD in musicology, Masters of Information Studies, MA in musicology, BA honors with specialization in music, and a minor in Russian, her diploma in music performance in piano, right?
Yeah.
So she's very well educated. Okay, wait. So I just learned something in the car on the way here, which I didn't know.
Right.
You lived in Nashville.
I did.
In 2009. So what were you doing in Nashville?
Oh, at the time I was just starting a PhD at Princeton, and I'd finished my first year of studies. And that first summer, students usually spend it studying for their comprehensive exams, which happen after their second year, but you have this block of time for studying. And the good news is you can study from anywhere. So I packed up my car and threw all my study books inside, and I came to Nashville for the summer. I lived here from, I think like 1st of May to end mid-August-ish. And I interned at the Country Music Hall of Fame and Museum in their public programming department. And we did a range of things from like educational programs. We do these really cute things where we go out to fairs and do musical petting zoos. So we teach kids how to, play a dulcimer, hold a mandolin, play a fiddle. I mean, we are not ourselves musicians on these instruments, but we would learn enough so that we could teach them how to hold it and how to strum it and or bow it. And we also were responsible for the public programming on weekends, so the singer-songwriter sessions. And so I'd write bios that my supervisor, Ali Tan, would read and and help and be in the museum on those days so that I could help support the musicians that were coming in and leaving. So I would study in the morning and then I'd go work at the Hall of Fame in the afternoon.
I just can't believe I didn't know that you lived in Nashville. You had a whole Nashville stint that I had no idea
I did,
about.
and it was too short, and I love it
And
here.
she's not moving here, but one day maybe, So for people that don't know you, you've been so important to me because you've been an advocate for women in country music. And you have shined a light on data. Your website is called SongData. And you were one of the first people that had real tangible data to show women are not being played on country radio. And if anyone's watching this and doesn't know about that, because as we said, there is kind of a stigma around the topic of one, females complaining about anything, but two, there's a feeling now of post Tomatogate, which I'll also explain. I think you would be better at explaining it, but post Tomatogate, just, moving on from the whole conversation. Yeah. So I'm just super grateful to you, which I don't even know if I've ever said to you, but we're here today and I'm going to say it because it's something that honestly traumatized me. I still wake up in the middle of the night thinking about all of the publisher meetings I've had over the last 14 years and how I've never received any constructive feedback about my songs other than we're not signing females and we don't need female songs. We need you to write male songs.
Yeah.
And people may not know on the interwebs that that's the only reason I've gotten specifically for why I have not been offered a publishing deal in Nashville. Yeah. And a lot of people that follow me know that story already, but your data has at least started the conversation and shined a light on this issue that is still an issue.
Yeah, it really sadly is worse.
Is it? Because I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
And so what do you, because I feel like maybe I would have jumped to this later, but I'm jumping to it now.
Okay.
What do you say to people who say, well, look at Lainey Wilson, look at Ella Langley, these women, and speaking of, artists in the, BIPOC artists, like look at Shabuzi, look at, what do you say to people when they say, but what about?
Yeah. And that is a really common narrative. And it's tricky because obviously Lainey Wilson and Ella Langley and Megan Maroney and Shabuzi, and there are a handful of artists who are having a really big moment.
Totally.
And they should be celebrated for all of their accomplishments, for awards, for charting milestones. But I think it's really important to remember that there are only 3 people. And, they can't do the work on their own to create space for other people.
Yeah.
There's a real danger of tokenizing them and holding them up and putting pressure on them to be saviors for a problem that is systemic.
Yeah.
Because when we talk about even just radio airplay, in 2024, songs by women received 8.39% of the overall airplay. 0.09% of that was for songs by Black women. And there was no airplay for songs by Hispanic or Latinx artists or Asian artists. And so, you really can't look at those stats and then look at two women winning awards and think, oh, problem solved.
I know. And
it's
people
just
say that friends, people, well, one friend in particular, I was like, I don't think we should be friends anymore. But will say to me, look at Lainey. I think to myself, I'm like, why has my experience been different? Am I difficult? Am I, you know what I mean? I start to get into that whole conversation of I must be difficult, or I wasn't nice enough, or I wasn't. And I'm just like, why has this been my experience and it wasn't their experience? But I'm sure
they're being Lainey's or Ella's.
Yeah.
I mean, they've also been around for a long time too,
and
right?
they must have had.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Neither one. And I'd say especially Lainey, she's not an overnight success, right? She was in this town, I don't know when she moved, at least 10 years.
Yeah, for sure.
Really grinding like everybody else.
Yeah.
And
she at least had someone who finally said yes.
Yeah, someone finally said yes.
Yeah.
And so, the success, you can't just look at one woman or two women and think, oh, yes,
problem solved.
The woman problem is solved.
Yes.
It's really not how it works. And this is the historic narrative, because before Lainey and Ella, it would have been
Marin and
Marin and Casey
and
Kelsey.
Yeah.
And then before that, Carrie and Miranda and Taylor. We're only ever naming 2 to 3 women at a time in very short time periods.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you saw Billboard just posted all these graphics, right? The top albums, the top singles, the top artists of the 21st century. Well, the top artists of the 21st century, Carrie and Taylor were the only ones in there.
Yeah.
Taylor's no longer in the country genre.
Yeah.
And Carrie hasn't really charted solo in a while.
Yeah.
Top albums. Oh, I really only glanced at it, but I think there's 4 Taylor albums in there, right? 3 or 4.
Taylor was the only female country artist in there. Yeah.
Yeah. So, we're 2025, right?
Yeah, I know.
2025.
I know.
And those top artist lists have none of the, artists who are winning these awards now in those lists.
Yeah.
But Morgan Wallen is there and Luke Combs is there. So we really do need to think about the ways in which this is a cycle that keeps returning. There's every few years, it's just a couple more women who get the slot, the slot in the playlist, whether it's radio or streaming, the slot on festivals, the slot on a tour. The nomination for an award. And 2 artists doesn't make equity.
That's the thing. And I think people don't realize what the entire genre, the makeup of that actually looks like. But I guess to back up, so I think this is why we met. I guess it started with Tomatogate, which we didn't really explain. Can you explain what Tomatogate was and what it set off in country music?
Yeah, so it's actually been 10 years since. And really, even though we often sort of refer to this article that appeared in Country Air Check in May 2015. Sorry, did I say May 26, 2015? I did, right?
Yes.
Okay. We usually refer to that as the moment, but really it sort of dates back further to CRS of that year when a radio consultant named Keith Hill had been on a panel about scheduling at CRS, Country Radio Seminar here in Nashville, and spoke about clusters of sameness within programming. And I don't know if he said on the panel, made this sort of salad reference, but in the write-up of the panel, they quoted Hill as talking about, as making a salad reference about how you don't want to bite with just one thing, you want a little bit of everything. And then spoke about holding songs by women at 13 to 15% of playlists. And that sort of went undetected, and probably because the nature of the reporting on it, it was somebody reporting on the conference. And then in May 26th, 2015, he was invited back to do an interview to elaborate on it. And he repeated the same thing, that songs by women should be held at a certain quota. And
as a guideline for
as a guideline,
make a playlist for radio.
to making ratings. If you want to keep your ratings high, he says, keep females out. And then goes on to say, you know, women are the tomatoes of the salad, and refers to men as the lettuce. And immediately, of course, once this was released on that date, everybody was angry, rightfully so. I remember Miranda Lambert, she tweeted, Jennifer Nettles tweeted, Margot Price wore a t-shirt that says, you say tomato, I say fuck you.
Oh, yeah.
Martina McBride became sort of like an advocate. She and her husband there's this great photo of she and her husband wearing tomato and tomato lover shirts. But the reality was that this was the first time where it was put into print in this very public way, these rules about programming that impacted women, that their songs were held at a lower percentage of the playlist in order to make ratings, but also adding to this that songs by women weren't played back to back. And women had felt this, you know, by this point they'd felt it for decades because it had been ongoing since 1960s. It wasn't a new practice, but it was put into print for the public to read.
So it's kind of like the first time it's acknowledged in a very public way.
Yeah.
So they were probably feeling it, but they didn't know for sure.
Yeah. Female artists were for sure feeling it because they'd hear things like, we only have one slot. Things that you were told about publishing happens for women who are trying to get on a label or, you know, their song on a playlist. We only have one slot, or, you know, things like that. So I think it was something that every woman had experienced to some capacity, but to hear it as well, or to see it in print as a rule, really reshaped everything and became this moment, this sort of catalyst for greater discussion. And at that point, you know, changed the conversation, had already been around for about a year. Beverly Kill, Tracy Gershon, Leslie Fram had already started meeting and talking about these issues. I believe by this point, the Song Suffragettes had already formed. I think they formed in 2014. And so they were already going with their, you know, Monday evening writers rounds. And so at this point, when this interview comes out, these groups were already forming because they were already aware that there was an issue. Tracy was having a hard time getting her artist, who was at the time Natalie Stovall, signed. Okay. You know, Beverly has been a journalist and a professor in this region for so long, and Leslie had been at CMT from, I guess, 2013-ish, or maybe just a few years earlier. So they were all seeing these things from working with women, from advocating for women, forming these groups, trying to, you know, bring in educational opportunities, networking, mentoring, et cetera. Todd with the singer-songwriter, opportunities to get women in front of audiences. And then this interview lands in everyone's lap. And it was like...
Right there.
In print. Probably like, you know, horrific to see, but probably the best thing that could ever happen because everyone's like, we can point to the thing now. We know we're not crazy.
It's not speculation.
It's no longer speculation. Yeah. We know that we know because somebody who's a consultant to the radio format, we know that this is how he consults. This is what he advocates in his practice.
And for anyone that doesn't realize like the implications of it is, when women aren't played on radio, there's less incentive for labels to sign them. There's less incentive for publishers to sign them because publishers make the majority of their money from the publishing that comes in from radio hits.
Yes.
I mean, streaming is coming along, but all I hear is that streaming has hurt their publishing royalty. So I was going into, around the same time, I was going into meetings trying to just get a publishing deal.
Because you moved here when?
2011.
Right. Okay.
But I was still sort of like, 2011 to 2015, I was just kind of, you know, dipping my toe in the water. I was writing a lot of pop music. I wasn't sure about a lot. I took a sabbatical in New York. You know, I was like, I don't know if this is for me. And But every door that opened was here. So it was the most confusing thing because I got played on country radio back home. Like my local radio station got behind me, and I got a meeting with Scott Borchetta. I came down here, met with him, sang for him. Nothing happened, but it looked like, oh wow, this is easy. Doors are opening. Right. But then when I got serious about trying to find a publishing deal, I think it was maybe 2015, 16, 17. I was like really trying. Yeah. And I just kept getting these very blatant responses of like, we're not signing female writers. Literally, word for word, I think you're a great writer, but we don't need female songs. And to me, I was like, my songs aren't really gendered completely. Yeah. One. And two, isn't that illegal to say to somebody? Like, because I grew up in Baltimore, like, it's a very progressive town, very liberal town. People have trouble with the word liberal, but it is parts of it, not all of it. So for me, like if that had happened in Baltimore when I was growing up, someone would have handled that, even if there weren't legal repercussions available. Like just the community I was in and the people that raised me, I feel like somebody would have called someone and been like, what the F did you just say to her? You know, that's just like the environment I grew up in. So when I came here and people were openly saying my gender was an issue, it was like, did I just time travel? That's how it always felt. Like I time traveled. Yeah. And then I was in the 50s and I was like, whoa, like I just got hit in the face. I'm very confused. Yeah. So anyway, I don't even know if I told you the full story. It's crazy saying this now, like in hindsight, because again, I feel like there is a feeling around town of just move on, don't talk about it anymore. Yeah. And so I actually, after this happened several times, I contacted the Time's Up Legal Defense Fund. Did I ever tell you this?
No.
So I tried to get a lawyer to help me navigate not being able to be employed as a songwriter, which I went to college to study and like make my job. Yeah. Like it was very like, this is my employee relationship. And I'm kind of like I'm a school person, you know, I'm like, I went here to make this my job. Anyway, so I contacted Time's Up Legal Defense Fund, which formed after the Me Too movement. I got in touch with a lawyer. I talked to the lawyer. I went through that whole process and they told me I didn't have a case basically, because even if these people said this and I had proof, artists and writers are contracted employees. Yeah. And Title VII, which is supposed to protect people from discrimination of their race, gender, religion, it does not protect contract employees. Right. And that was the reason I never did anything legally to kind of stick up for myself. And when you're that person who's like willing to talk about it and is like, I have a problem with this, like you're shunned, you're blacklisted, you know?
Yeah, you get punished.
Yeah. And honestly, just to be completely transparent, because I'm with you and I don't care what people know, like the last few years, I have held my tongue. Like right now, I feel like I want to talk about it. Yeah. But there have been a lot of times where I'm like, move on. Just don't talk about it because so-and-so's not going to like you. You still want a publishing deal. You want to find community. And it's the weirdest trade-off to feel like I can't talk about this. And yet, even a year ago, almost to the day, I was put in touch with a publisher, a female publisher. And I don't want to be like, oh, she's a female, she shouldn't have said it. Said the exact same thing I heard a decade ago. And that's where you would be shocked at how many female executives have said the same thing. Yeah. Not all of them, obviously, but and it's not women's job to solve a problem like this solely. Right. But you would think you wouldn't hear it from another woman. So anyway, has progress been made? No. So what does it look like? Can you tell us what was it then statistic wise and what is it now?
Yeah. So when I released the first study in April 2019, which it's a study that I did in consultation with an advocacy group named Women of Music Action Network that was here in Nashville. So this study found a 66% decline in the number of songs by women that appeared in the top 150 played each year from 2000 to 2018. And that was from a drop from 33% down. And we found a decline in airplay. A second report found, we looked at the distribution by daytime and found that, surprise, surprise, or not surprise, surprise, that most of the airplay for songs by women was in the evenings and overnights. So that's between 7 and 12 a.m. and then 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. And so, you think of your day parts where folks are awake and, listening to things. And that's typically between 6 a.m. and 7 p.m. And that's when songs by women were getting the lowest amount of airplay. In 2024, that amounted to that 8.39% amounts to about one song an hour by a woman being played through the day. So depending on where in the hour they're programmed, it's possible that you could go more than an hour without hearing a woman's voice as a solo artist, maybe in collaboration with a man.
Yeah, but never as a solo.
But not as a solo or a trio of women. And that's really harmful, not just to the artists, of course, not just to the opportunities available for women. And I guess we should add to this, non-binary transgender artists who are not being played at all. So it's really harmful from the artist perspective of their opportunity and exposure and their ability to build careers. So you can imagine if they're only playing something like 39 songs by women a day, they're probably playing mostly two artists, maybe a couple of others sprinkled in randomly. But then on top of that, that informs an audience. If you're a country music fan and you're going to your local station to, one, just sort of be entertained through the day, but also maybe be exposed to new artists when they're dropping songs, because new songs get dropped every week. You're basically being told by your programmers, or you sort of read into that relationship as your programmers know what's best and hot, and that's what they're playing. And so you build a relationship of trust with a station to play the best music, the hottest music, and that everybody's there because they deserve to be there. And it gives you a really flawed perspective on the industry. It teaches them to think that there are more men, more white men, than there are women. And whenever I say women, I feel like I just need to qualify this. Like, we're really just talking about white women, because women of color are just not played.
They're not played.
That 0.09% that I quoted earlier from 2024 was almost entirely for Beyonce, one song, Texas Hold'em. So, 0.09% of the airplay that was relegated to songs by Black women, 88% of that, so like 0.07-ish% of the airplay was for Texas Hold'em. And they stopped playing Texas Hold'em in May.
And she was not nominated for any.
No, she got to 29 on the Airplay chart, and she got to number 1 on the Hot Country Songs chart, because that chart is a hybrid and draws from streaming, sales, and crossover airplay. So not just country radio, but all radio.
Yeah.
And, she was at the top of that chart for 10 weeks. So clearly people liked the song, because in a chart that includes not just programming decisions, but fan choice of sales and streams, it was number 1 for 10 weeks. Clearly people wanted it. And yet country radio essentially dropped it. It went from receiving something like 12 or 1,500 spins and dropped right off. The second her label pulled promotional money, radio pulled it. And I've never seen a drop like this. I haven't seen a drop like this since possibly radio pulled the Chicks.
Oh, wow.
In 2003. Because we all remember that, right?
Yes.
Like, we remember they're at number 1 with Traveling Soldier and have other songs being played. Natalie Says What She Says from the stage in London, England. And once that gets over here and people react to it, their songs disappear from radio and it's like, boom, gone. Well, very different circumstances, very different contexts, but like essentially it was like no more promotional support behind Texas Hold'em, boom, gone.
Yeah.
And across 157 stations, gone.
I'm not even making this up. When I play that song every set downtown,
Yeah.
and it is by far the most reactive song by the audience.
In what way?
People start literally cheering and like getting into the
positive
song.
reactive.
It's positive. Like they just start, they like wake up basically.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that song is very popular downtown on Broadway in Nashville.
Yeah.
So I am surprised that it didn't get more love because people love the song.
Yeah.
And I feel like it brought people from other, fans of other genres to country. So it's like, isn't that a positive?
Well, I mean, it's such a positive, right? Because the format and the industry is not supporting any Black women who live here. Mm-hmm. Seeing an artist of Beyonce's like global icon stature release country music gives fans who, if they use radio or streaming as sort of a barometer of how to find new artists, and they're not seeing those artists on the main playlists or hearing them on the main playlists, then seeing Beyonce there is like a sign that they can see themselves in the space.
Yeah.
And then for those who are like, I've always loved country music and now I see Beyonce doing it, and then do the work, go actually into Spotify or Apple and start searching for artists, start Googling for other Black women in country, and they stumble on Mickey Guyton and Madeline Edwards and Brittany Spencer and Reese Palmer. Like sometimes it takes seeing somebody visibly or hearing them visibly on a playlist to have to take that time to go and do the work and to find that actually there are hundreds of Black artists who both live in Nashville and not and make country music. Mm-hmm. They might stumble across the Black Opry website where there's just like a list of country and Americana artists who live across the country, many of whom here. And so, they could have really taken this moment as an opportunity to build pathways for Black artists. Instead, almost all of them were dropped from their labels over the last year.
Really? I actually
if
didn't
not
know that.
Before Beyonce, just after.
I didn't know that.
Mickey remains she's now the only Black female artist signed to a major label. Madeline Edwards was for a little while and she's no longer with her label. Like, it was just an opportunity. It was an opportunity to learn who your audience actually is or could be. Yeah. It was an opportunity to create blueprints or pathways for other Black artists in the industry. I think the industry, radio, streaming, CMA, ACM, everybody. I think nobody embracing this opportunity, celebrating Beyonce, nominating Beyonce, acknowledging the other artists who live in Nashville who were on that album, like Brittany Spencer, Tiara Kennedy, Raina Roberts, Tanner Adele, Willie Jones.
I think globally there was an awareness and a lifting up of those artists. But in terms of, industry specific award shows, nominations, all of that, it just didn't happen.
And for anyone who's like not fully invested in country, who might be on the outside looking in, it looks like 2024 was a great year. Yeah. It really wasn't. Inside, there was no movement for these artists. Again, like a lot of them were dropped.
That's something I didn't know, because I think there are people who are inclusive here, and there are people who want to build pathways and bridges, but it's not at the mainstream level,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
And so I think people, on the outside looking in, they're like, wait, what do you mean? Like,
Yeah.
I saw this, this, and this.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at that, if the Hot Country Songs chart is one that you look at as a barometer of like what's going on, and you see that Beyonce is at the top for 10 weeks and Shabuzi's at the top for like 43, 44 weeks, and Big X the Plug and Bailey Zimmerman have a number one, you would think, and even like we can say Chappell Roan too, having a number one for a week, like you would think that, oh great, there's some real change happening here.
Yeah.
But that's a hybrid chart that takes in airplay from not just country, all formats, digital sales, streams, etc. And so it's pulling in data from an audience that the industry is not courting. And then you go over to the airplay chart and you see what's really happening. You see how white male dominated it is.
And airplay is radio specific.
Radio specifically. And it's just country format radio.
Yeah.
So the Billboard airplay chart and the Media Base airplay chart, both of those charts are just tabulating their rankings based on the airplay on Billboard. It's 145 stations across the US, and Media Base is 157 stations across the US. So not even all stations, but the ones that are reporting to these two reporting systems. And the format's playing 8.39% songs by women, 0.09 by women of color, or I should say Black women specifically, because Latinas and, as I said earlier, like Asian women and Indigenous women are not, their songs are not receiving any support. So, it's a really interesting situation where, depending on your perspective, depending on what you're looking at, it could look like things are changing. Yeah. But actually inside, it's really not. And in some ways, it looks it's getting worse, right? This is less airplay than like 2023 when it was 9.8%.
Yeah.
So there's a real backslide that's going on.
That's crazy to me, because I actually didn't realize that, because I probably am one of the people who thought, oh, it looks like a lot is changing.
Yeah. Well,
especially for Black artists, I thought,
Yeah.
But I think people that don't understand radio is still king, kind of, in country music. And that is because it informs award shows, red carpets even. And all of these are just more opportunities to build your career. More eyeballs on you means more ears on your music.
Yeah.
And so if you're shut out from radio, you're a byproduct of that is being shut out from everything else.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it may not seem like radio matters in this day and age, but it still does.
Yeah. I mean, you hit on an important point earlier. That's how people get paid.
Yes.
Right? It's what, 0.0003 cents a stream on Spotify, and it's slightly higher on Apple. And I think Tidal's the best is at 0.008. So, you're splitting your fraction of a penny, possibly. If you're solo songwriter and artist, like you might not be, but if you're in a writer's room with 12 other people, your fraction of a penny is a very small fraction. In the streaming world, the streaming model really just supports the top 1%. Like there was a statistic that was published in a Rolling Stone article a few years ago that it was like the top 1% are responsible for something like 90% of streaming royalties. Yeah. So that final 10% is split between everyone else.
Yeah. And let us not forget, some of these larger playlists are actually owned by the labels.
Yes.
Which people don't know. Sorry to cut you off.
No, it's true. As the industry has become increasingly digital, and I guess we could go back to like the early 2000s with like pre-Spotify, like Napster and LimeWire, and the sort of like digital theft of music. Like artists really were the ones who were kicked in the face on that one.
Yeah.
Right? Like royalties went down because people were peer-to-peer sharing music for free. And then digital formats come in, and like, YouTube, Spotify, at least with Apple, I mean, at least I feel weird saying that. You can buy your music there. And I do. I still buy. I buy digital, and sometimes I also still buy, a vinyl, or I used to still buy CDs, and I'm like, I'm buying CDs and don't have anything to play them on. But I do have a record player. So when I can, I try to buy the physical record too. But we're in a world where like artists aren't making money off their music.
Yeah.
They're making it off merch, right? Like merch and live performance. If your shows are cutting more than even, like if you're actually making a revenue.
Yeah.
So it's harder financially, it's harder than ever to be an artist when your music is being given away as a slot between advertisements, right? Spotify is not a music service. It is an advertising platform that has used music as a way to sell ads. So it's basically radio, but unlike radio, where you have a human curating a playlist that a DJ will play, you can choose what you play, or you can go to a editorial playlist and have it, listen to it top to bottom, or have it shuffle for you.
Yeah.
That's the only difference. Like DSPs are just digital radio with allowing the consumer to select.
So do you feel like though, because I feel like the DSPs, at least for me, they've given me a chance way more.
For sure.
Than
the other difference
the other
being,
part of the industry.
The other difference being that you control. You don't have a gatekeeper to releasing your music.
No, I email Spotify directly. And I say, please consider this.
Yeah. But you also can put your own music on your own. You don't have a label who controls what goes out.
But the gatekeepers at Spotify.
Yes. A new kind of gatekeeper, right?
A new kind of gatekeeper. I do feel like they are overall way more inclusive than kind of the archaic parts of the industry, I guess.
A tiny bit.
My experience. Yeah. And that may not be true for everybody.
Well, I think
not on the huge playlists, but they'll give me a shot.
Right. Well, I think that you already have agency to put out your own music is really key. Like you don't have a gate to even releasing it. You write and record a song. You can release it on your timeline. But it's up to you. Yeah. And so any of the assets, like any of the graphic design, all that's on you. You pay for that. You do it. Sometimes some people, you might be in this camp, do it all on your own. You are the songwriter, the artist, the record producer, the mixer, the graphic designer. Yeah,
I don't go into all of that, but I try.
Various roles of those pieces of releasing music. Like more and more artists are able to do many of those pieces, if not all of them, on their own. And then thanks to DSPs, you can release it on your own, and there's no gate to you releasing it. Yeah, that's great. That you have a direct line. Yeah. Somebody or an email address you can contact at DSPs to, request to be considered for a playlist is great. Yeah. But a lot of the bigger playlists on each platform have a human that's responsible for curating them. And often they're basing it off of, most streamed song, so the data of the week. And not only that, but, that often is related to what's happening on radio. So streaming doesn't work in its own silo of influence. On the one hand, they are looking at user generated data, but they're also looking at the data of the industry, even if indirectly, because what happens at radio influences streaming and vice versa. So the issues are still there. The other issue is the metadata system that underlies all of this. The genre classifications are still racially encoded. And so, country equals white, R&B equals black. This was a coding system that developed in the 1920s when the recording industry began and artists were separated into hillbilly and race music, which was renamed in the 1940s country and western, and R&B, rhythm and blues. Now, rhythm and blues has gone through a bunch of names, like country and western simplifies to country, but rhythm and blues went through so many name changes. It actually was Harlem Hit Parade before, then it was rhythm and blues, then it was race records, then it was black music, then it was it went through a number of name changes, and it has gone back to and since remained rhythm and blues. But if all of your music is tagged with these genre classifications, that sort of like feeds into the segregation that happens on charts and radios, and it's replicated in digital service providers.
It all impacts
it. So, if you go into Spotify, I talked about this with Reese Palmer on her show, so I will use this example again. But, Reese will go to her page and she'll scroll down to the bottom, and it's like, if you like Reese Palmer, you might also like Mickey Guyton, Brittany Spencer, like all Black women, which on the one hand is great because you can find all the Black women in country music, but it will not put her in the same category as white women in country or white men in country. It's because you only ever, in the training data that is Spotify, both their genre classifications and the user data, you only ever see Reese and playlists next to these artists because people are building, Black country artist playlists, or, Spotify themselves have their own, curated playlists for Black artists, for Latino artists, etc. And so, one, great, you can go and find all the artists you want and engage with their music. But if you're using the recommender to recommend artists to you, it's still going to say, oh, you like country? Well, country equals white man.
Yeah.
And so I did this was an experiment that I did. The last time I did it was 2023, or I think. But I would go into Spotify, I'd go in to make a playlist, I'd call it country music, and I'd let the recommender generate a list for me. The very first time I ever did this was 2019, after Martina McBride did it. I was like, oh, I want to see if that happens for me too.
Oh, right.
And it did, but it took me 12 or 14 page refreshes before I was given one song by a woman. And then I kept going. And in the end, it was like, it had recommended something like 14% songs by women. I redid this periodically, but the last time I did this, I did country music, started building the playlist. I got 8 pages with 10 songs each. All of the songs were by men, all of them. The only way I got a song by a woman was by typing in and searching for a song by a woman, and then it would give me recommendations. So I think at the time I picked a Lainey Wilson song because she was in the top 10 of the chart. So I searched for Lainey, and then I let the recommendations come, and then I got about 60% songs by men, 40% songs by women recommended to me. I have to manually select a song by a woman to be recommended. Sort of in closer to equitable measure. But of course, mostly white people.
You would think streaming is the opportunity to finally be done.
Yeah. But you can't, because digital, anything algorithmic, any of these digital service providers, anything that has a AI as its engine underneath it, is just replicating the world around it.
Yeah.
So it's going to make its recommendations on the most streamed songs. Who are the most streamed songs, the most played songs.
Yeah.
So, it's really tough because it like streaming platforms for, television and movies, we sort of think of them as the great equalizer, as like this democratic tool that provides equal, but it doesn't, because the industries that are feeding content into it are still so grounded in white supremacy, hetero patriarchal, beliefs. And the film industry is the same. You can release your films or your television episodes digitally, but if the industry is not, producing films with women leads, with Black leads, with Latina characters, you're going to see the same inequity is going to be in those services as well. Yeah. So, we like, these tools are great. They have the opportunity to be great, but we can't look at them as a solution to the problems because the industry is still so systemically problematic.
Yeah, and I think it just proves that you have to be so intentional about change.
Yeah.
And like nothing will change if nothing changes, basically.
Yeah.
My cameras are dying left and right, so we have to wrap this up. But I think progress obviously is always slow, and it feels like one step forward, 2 steps back, or 10 steps back. But I think what I've learned is you have to constantly be trying to make change, or people just revert back to the old ways.
Yeah.
And I think what I was telling you earlier is I have felt the need to silence myself because a lot of these issues have impacted me, and I want community. The last thing I want to do is ostracize myself by speaking up. And there's definitely a feeling of don't say too much or say it in the right way and
Still sound grateful.
and
loyal.
Yeah, and don't push buttons. And I have to remind myself, I really want to be intentional about it. I mean, I have to remind myself to not silence my own voice. I mean, I always think about that. I'm like, you're a singer. These are the thoughts that come to me like in the middle of the night. You know, it's like, you're a singer. Like, your whole thing is your voice. Use it, you know? But I look up to these people who are doing well, women in the genre, and they go about it the right way. I want to do it the right way, but we need to be able to have conversations like this where people don't ostracize someone for just telling the truth, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think I need to talk to you more, probably. I don't know. I
we
think
can anytime.
yeah, and being an ally for other people. Like, I know there's more that I could do. That thing in me that's sort of like, oh, don't go there. This conversation has made me realize how much I've done that in the last few years, just because I want to finally be let in. And it's like, why am I doing that?
Yeah, and you're not alone in that. It's an industry that is built on capitalism for starters. It's a capitalistic space where everyone is in competition for scarce resources. And it's sort of like the capitalism of it all keeps the white supremacy in place. So it keeps things segregated. It keeps women in competition, and it creates this false sense that like we're in a world where resources are scarce, absolutely, but also now more than ever, folks need to band together.
Yeah.
And it's really important that artists who are marginalized stop thinking of this as a zero-sum game, that like, you know, giving up a little for somebody else is going to hurt your bottom line. It's not. It's not. The more you band together, the more women band together. And I really think it intentionally needs to be remembered that like not just white women, but women of color, trans artists, non-binary artists, there has to be a way for everybody to better support and advocate and build community and recognize that when a door opens for you, you hold that fucking thing open.
Yeah.
And you reach your hand back and you pull someone through with you.
Yeah.
There's not a really big history of doing that in this industry. I see very few people doing it. And quite often in the mainstream sort of like very public spaces, you only see it happening with the couple at the top.
You have to do that intentionally.
Yeah.
And regularly.
And you know, is this work, is the work of advocating for change and equity and diversity and inclusivity and accessibility exhausting? Absolutely. Yeah. Like,
and you need a break from it sometimes. It can't be the only conversation all the time.
Yeah,
for sure.
It can't be for your mental health and your well-being, and you do need to rest because it is a long journey.
Yeah.
And so yeah, you know, I think a lot about the labor of it all. And it's not lost on me that it's always on the shoulders of the marginalized individuals within a community who do the bulk of the labor and get little reward.
And it's because I always think about how people generally only care about things that affect them in their life. And I am guilty of that too.
Everybody is.
But it's true. I mean, you're ignorant to what doesn't affect you because you don't have to deal with it in your day to day. So I think if you can step in someone else's shoes, and if someone is vocalizing a problem, try to be their ally in some way.
Listen.
Listen, speak up for them. If you are in a position of power, I think they're scared too, though.
Of course.
That's what shocks me.
Of course.
I'm like, I think of certain people, I'm like, how have you never spoken up on my behalf? You know? And for incidences that I know that they know this person, they can make a phone call. And it's just like, it always, but I realize they're scared too. They want to keep their job and, you know. Anyway, so I think this has been a really helpful reminder to me, because you're allowed to speak up, and I don't have to be so scared. I don't think. I think I'm here with my friend, you, and I'm feeling confident. But I really have been much quieter, and I don't need to be, and I've just realized that. So thank you.
You really don't.
Yeah.
You have a voice, and you have always used it.
The last couple of years I've been a little quiet, but I think I need to use it more.
I think, as you go forward, it's just remember that the more you can bring folks through with you, the bigger your community is going to get. Like if you're feeling right now, like, for anyone who's feeling like isolated because the industry pits women against each other and makes them compete for these scarce resources, I think it's important. It's important to sort of like try to push that competition away and focus on what you are able to do, but also that it is important. It's really important to build strong relationships and coalitions and support each other and be excited for each other. And recognize that if somebody gets on a particular stage, that like, it's not because you aren't worthy. But maybe next time you will, or maybe next time they'll bring you with them.
I think that's a good indicator of, oh, this is possible for me too. That's how I've reframed it for myself, because it really, when I see, I mean, I watched Carly come up. We kind of got here at similar times, but seeing her every win she has, I'm like, oh my God, it's exciting for me, and it's not me, but
and it should be. It doesn't mean that it's going to be easy, because you might want to be in a particular place too, but I think that's the hardest part about this industry. I mean, any industry, even my world of academia, it's like you get really excited for your colleagues when something big happens for them, and you're like, oh, I wish that's normal. That's just sort of like a normal human emotion, but, or reaction to something. But, I think if there's a way to dig deep and remember that like we are stronger together, that like this industry has intentionally pit individuals against each other forever. It's not new. 1920s when the Carter family was in the recording studio, they actually were told a woman in the lead will never sell. Like that's ingrained into the values and beliefs of this institution. And so, I think that it sort of runs counter to the ways in which we are indoctrinated into certain systems, especially women, especially artists of color. But it's, I think it is really important to think about the way forward as coalition building.
Because, and again, people don't realize what it's like being in it. And your world becomes very small when your opportunities are fewer and fewer, and co-writers start canceling on you, and all of a sudden you spend a lot of time by yourself. I mean, I know that's been the case for me, and I think it doesn't have to be like that forever, and it takes time to make change happen. But I think, I don't know. I think there's more that I've realized I could do with artists who are in the same spot as me.
Yeah.
You know, that might not have the same opportunities, but
you could write together. You could just hang out and go for tea together.
Yeah.
You can go support other artists together. And like, I hate to make it even darker, but like in the current climate, like things being politically what they are, I think it's more important than ever.
100%. I feel that too.
Yeah.
And also just, I feel like there's no one bad guy. And these conversations always get heated for people.
Yeah.
Because they think you're saying, oh, it's the label's fault. It's radio's fault. It's the publisher's fault. It's not necessarily any one person's fault.
No.
But know that if you're meeting with someone and you use any part of their identity against them, you're part of the problem. You may not have caused the initial problem, but you have an opportunity in that moment to change the course of history, change the future of the genre, and make your decision wisely, you know? Yeah. Like, don't be a part of the problem. So anyway, thank you for being here. Our
Thank
cameras
you for
are
having
still
me.
on. They may die any moment.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for doing this. And so where can people find more out about you and your research?
Oh gosh, that's so hard in a world where social media has imploded. So my research website is songdata.ca. So for anyone who's looking for some stats, you can find it there. I'm on Twitter, now known as X. I won't say it the other way. I'm on Twitter at data_Jada. Instagram is the same, and Blue Sky and Threads are some iteration of Data Jada.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm usually in 3 of those spaces, not Twitter, but everything is sort of still archived there.
All right. Well, thank you again. You're the best. Thanks for everything you do.
Thanks for having me.
You're amazing.
In my 30s.
No, I'm a nerd. I'm a nerd.
I love nerds. The last guy I dated said I was a nerd, and it like annoyed him, and I'm not even like the kind of nerd I want to be, you know? Like, you just
Keep striving for it.
Okay. See, the glasses come off, but they're going to come back. They're going to come back on. Okay. I need to like welcome you to the pod.
Is it okay that I'm not in my 30s?
1,000%. The girl that was just here was in her late 20s. The girl that was here before you. We'll try to keep it short because you've had a long trip. Right?
I don't think we do things short, but
We don't.